Troubleshooting with Xcode. We're going to be looking at all of the Xcode debugging tips and tricks that will be covered throughout the entire course. My name is Diodus and I have been programming since 2007. I have worked with different programming languages including Java and C#. For the last 8 years, I have focused my career entirely on developing on the iOS platform. I have a master's degree in software engineering. I have developed over 50 apps working as a freelancer. Currently, I work remotely for a startup and I really do enjoy my work. I have a strong passion for teaching and for iOS development in general. In the first section, we're going to be introducing the basics of Xcode debugging, and then we're going to be looking at some examples of bugs with descriptive debug messages. We're going to be looking at examples of bugs that do not have descriptive debug messages. We're going to be explaining what build warnings are, and then finally, we're going to be looking at build issues. Section 2, we're going to be looking at the LLDB and the breakpoints. We're going to be introducing the low-level debugger and how to use Xcode breakpoints. We're going to learn how to use the cause tags to identify areas of problems in our code. We're going to learn how to inspect variables using breakpoints. We're going to learn how to step through code using the breakpoint. And finally, we're going to learn how to print object values inside of the console. Section 3 of the course, we're going to be looking at the generic breakpoints. The first one that we're going to be looking is the exception breakpoint, which is very useful when you're trying to debug your program. And then we're going to be looking at the swift error breakpoint to catch errors before it propagates to other parts of the app. We're going to learn how to use the symbolic breakpoint and the advantages. We're going to be learning how to use the layout error breakpoint. And finally, we're going to learn how to resolve layout constraint errors in our project. In section 4, we're going to be doing some view debugging. The first tool that we're going to be learning is how to use the view hierarchy debugger, which is going to allow us to debug our view in a 3D mode. And then we're going to learn how to use the app gauge to monitor how resources are used inside of our app. Then we're going to be using the color blended layers to monitor how the graphic performance is doing inside of the app. And finally, we're going to learn how to use the quick look to debug our view inside of the variable view. In section 5, we're going to be learning some advanced breakpoint tips. We're going to learn how to stop using print statements instead of our project. We will be able to replace all our print statements with breakpoints. And then we're going to learn how to log function name and how many times a function has been called. We're going to learn how to use the conditional breakpoint, which is very essential so that all our breakpoints are not activated at all times. We're going to learn how to add multiple actions to a breakpoint. And finally, we're going to learn how to work with breakpoints inside of the low-level debugger by using the LLDB breakpoint command. In the final chapter 6, we're going to be learning how to use the instrument. We're going to be introducing the instrument and how to use all the profiling templates. We're going to learn how to fix memory allocation issue in our project. We're going to be looking at how to fix memory leaks issues in our project. We're going to be learning how to use the time profiling template to identify area of CPU bottlenecks in our app. And finally, we're going to be discussing some performance improvement tips to keep in mind while developing your app. In order to follow along with this course, you must meet the following requirements. You must be familiar with the Swift programming language. A basic understanding of Swift should be sufficient in order to follow along with the course. You must also have a basic knowledge of iOS or macOS development. You must be able to develop a basic iOS or macOS project. The third course prerequisite is that you should be familiar with the Xcode IDE. Having a good understanding of Xcode is required in order to benefit from this course. All of the debugging steps are done within Xcode. Finally, you must be interested in learning various ways of debugging iOS or macOS projects. We're going to be learning various debugging tips. At the end of this course, you'll be able to identify different kinds of bugs and issues within your Xcode project, and you will be able to resolve them. You will become familiar with the low-level debugger tool and understand how to use it to debug your apps. You will also become familiar with different types of generic breakpoints and when to use them. You will be able to debug your user interface issues and learn how to improve the performance of your app. You will learn how to use LLDB commands and how to use advanced breakpoint features in your project. Finally, you will become familiar with Xcode instruments and how to use common profiling templates to measure and to identify problems in your project.